Amazing.
Yep, and the forest gives us shade, trees to climb.
That's awesome. Let's go explore some more.
Visit the forest today and enjoy all it does, just for you. To learn more about the forest and find one near you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever works out best for you to see, hear, interact with the show, whichever works best for you. That's the right place for you to be as we continue our dual missions to have live local talk radio here in the Borderland, because, damn it, I think we deserve it. Nothing has dissuaded me from that whole conclusion, but also to talk about the things going on and affecting us right here in our area, broadcast area, particularly a little bit more broadly today, and even a bit beyond, as we've got quite a lot of things going on, swirling around. I mean, this is, of course, among other things, it's not the most popular way it's been phrased to it, but I still think of it as, Patriots Day, 9/11, and, of course, the anniversary and commemorations going on in the Borderland. Talk a bit about that, including some other impacts that have come from it, and we'll talk a little bit further about that, as well as a lot more public safety and or security efforts going on in and around the Borderland, including a crime lab expansion, trespassing signs being passed out, a lot more cameras coming to the Borderland. And then I've often said that there's a lot of news that seems to come out of the weekend. A lot, think about it as like, kind of a dead time, people not doing too much, and therefore waiting for the start of the week. Not the case this past week. I would heartily argue, as even just in case you've been just completely under a rock, which I don't blame you. Weekend is a good time to disconnect. But coming into it, it's already resulted in talks about possible impeachment against the governor of New Mexico over her public health emergency orders banning guns from the streets of Albuquerque. That's a very high level description of it. So we'll get into it, including the statements from the governor's office and the actions that are now being considered. So, yeah, pretty busy start to the week here, I do have to say, even as, okay, I'm not going to say this was totally a attempt to take away the focus from Texas, sibling state envy, with all the focus on the impeachment trial going on in the Texas State Senate for embattled Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. But if you were to think that way, this would fit right into it, is all I'm saying. So a lot to get into here today. A lot of people already joining us over on the social media, such as Robbie Flores, RJ, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate it. And dropping those likes and reacts most specifically. This does help with all of those algorithmic things as we get into and try to talk about many things going on and happening right in our area. So let's go ahead and just jump right into a bunch of it here. El Paso Matters did have the wrap-up of some of the events, most specifically noting that the El Paso Fire Department earlier today did held its annual 9/11 memorial ceremony to commemorate now the 22nd anniversary of the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. So we have Ida Beza Gardner joining us over on the social media as well. Hi, with the wave to you as well. And I mean, of course, there's been a lot of remembrances, a lot of retrospective on this. One of the things that's hit me the most, so, okay, to fully date myself when it comes to that, I was in middle school coming downstairs, and we didn't usually in my household at that point in time listen to or watch TV in the morning. It was kind of just get through the preparations for the day. None of us particularly morning people, and, get on to school at that thing. And so the fact that the TV was on was a little bit weird already. And then seeing the events that were coming on, the thing that struck me most of it was the different way that teachers at that point in time, being in middle school, dealt with the subject and the issue. A couple of them just bound and determined to continue on with it because, what was I in? It wasn't geometry or calculus or anything like that. Algebra, must have been algebra class at that point in middle school, still bound and determined that, whatever's going on, we have to learn these equations, that kind of a thing. And meanwhile, I was actually already in speech classes at that point. And the teacher in that case just said, just TV on, and just said, we're not doing anything else today, guys. This is the only thing that we're going to be focusing on today, and just watch the coverage and all the things that came along with it. The thing that's really impacted me most, I got to say, from all the other coverage that's been coming out, of course, nationwide about this, is the fact that there are now having to be some retrospectives, some look back, some education going on for, say, current recruits, because one report I heard was that there's a couple even like officers who have no personal memory of that event because either they were incredibly young or maybe not born yet when it comes to those now serving in our military and dealing with the aftermath of these attacks. So as we get, again, 22 years past, it was bound to happen as that time, of course, marches on. But in our area, there were, of course, again, some of those commemorations, things, at least some impacts, including a couple of different issues going on with high schools, such as, again, from our news partners at KFOX 14, some Mayfield High School ROTC cadets collapsed from dehydration during 9/11 Memorial, and they were participating into it, particularly with, again, the ROTC, and they apparently were locking their knees and not drinking enough water is what was being cited as part of this. Students there now doing fine, but certainly the heat very specifically being noted as part of it. One of the other parts, and of course, other things going on in our area, and this one a little bit more impacting and not happening during the 9/11 commemorations or anything like that, but rather Friday Night Lights, that there was a Bowie High School student collapsed during a football game Friday, has now unfortunately died. Daniel Esparza, as noted by our news partners at KFOX 14, was given emergency medical treatment on the field, but unfortunately did die at the hospital after collapsing. And El Paso ISD releasing this statement today that the El Paso ISD community grieves with the family of Bowie High School student Daniel Esparza, who tragically passed away Sunday, September 10th. Daniel was a beloved member of the school community. He was a dutiful member of the Bowie Band, Mariachi Group, and JROTC, who relished his role as a leader. El Paso ISD stands with Daniel's family and with the entirety of Bowie High School as they gather the strength to deal with this trying time. A team of counselors is available to Bowie students and staff, and the district will provide any additional support necessary. Also, thanking those that immediately responded to this, among other things. So that's a couple of things going on, and certainly making a lot of headlines around our region, but a couple of things going on involving public safety in our area, some evolving situations, including a crime lab expansion, again, no trespassing signs, and even a lot more cameras being anticipated. So we'll talk more about that as we're already due for that first break of this hour right now. You're, of course, tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. And yes, RJ referencing also that situation going on in the land of enchantment that we'll certainly be addressing as well. Make no mistake. But in any case, taking that break of this hour, you're, of course, again, here with us. We'll be getting to those phone calls a little bit later. Already had some inputs coming even before we got into the show here today about some of that immigration and border security coverage that we will also be getting to here today, maybe talking about that here in this next segment. So in any case, stay tuned. We're Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere. Ruli's International Kitchen. You've never tasted fusion like this before, is the note from the Food Network that was, of course, made about this more than I would argue, but definitely a great little gourmet dive with all of their special events and their constantly changing menu specials. They're doing a bit of a revamp right now as it is. So if you haven't been there in a minute, now is a great time to go and see the new features they've got for you, because it's perfect for, of course, the everyday occasion and definitely those special celebrations, including, of course, brunch on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, including also dinner hours. So you want to find all the details, everything that they've got going on for you, or just check them out themselves. Of course, find them 4176 North Mesa, not too far from Mesa and Executive, right off of I-10 in that case, or give them a call at 915-313-4806. That's 915-313-4806, or find them online for all these details, links to their social, everything they got going on. RulisIK.com. That's RulisIK.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso police are on the scene of a collision Gateway West at Viscount. Watch for some heavy congestion and slowing there. I-10 westbound doing a lot better from Schuster to Executive Center. It's less than a 5-minute delay. 7-minute delays on North Mesa from the downtown exits up to North Desert. And police responding to a crash. Rojas at Lee Trevino. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
For one night, the tables are turned, the roles reversed. Noche de Estrellas. Thursday, September 28th at the Plaza Hotel, Pioneer Park. Marathon presents Noche de Estrellas, a new fundraiser benefiting the El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank. This reverse gala provides a remarkable experience for food bank clients and those who wholeheartedly support the cause to reduce hunger. Noche de Estrellas. For sponsorship details, call 915-224-1306. Online at elpasoansfightinghunger.org.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
Hey, your friend Sean Hannity here with a little guidance, suggestion, if you may. Now, look, I invest in real estate all over the country. And when I work with a real estate agent, well, I want one that's going to fight for me to win the negotiation and either sell my property for the most money possible or get my home purchased without paying obscene prices. Now, if you're buying or selling right now, there's only one agent in this market that I would call, and that's Brian Birds, brokered by eXp Realty. More people in El Paso trust Brian and his team of experienced professionals than any other agent. Now, don't just take my word for it. Get online and read all the 5-star reviews. Now, these are from happy, successful home sellers who, like me, have been there. Now, they had an amazing and profitable experience and will never trust anyone else. Put the most experience and the best marketing to work for you. Call the only agent I would call in El Paso. Call Brian Birds right now at 751-1500 or online at brianbirds.com or just Google Brian Birds, B-U-R-D-S, and you can start packing.
Tuesdays.
We'll find out who loves football.
Inside the NFL has a new home, and it's only on the CW.
We got to win every time we step on the field.
I'm excited that we back.
Let's go!
And now it's for everyone.
Dominate from the first step to the last step.
With new host Ryan Clark and analysts Channing Crowder, Chris Long, Chad Johnson, Jay Cutler.
What a play.
The all-new Inside the NFL.
Touchdown!
Tuesdays at 8, 7 Central. Stream free next day. Now on the CW.
Think identity theft won't happen to you? Think again. There's a new victim every 3 seconds in the U.S. Over 15 million this year alone. And many don't even know they're victims. LifeLock alerts you to identity threats you could miss, even when you monitor your credit. If your identity is stolen, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft, but everyone can save up to 25% off their first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Identity theft protection starts here.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, depending on which platform you're on, whatever works out best for you there. So, there's a lot of things going on and happening in our area today, but public safety is certainly one of the major parts of it that we are constantly seeing impacts from around our area. And there's been a lot that's been, and we got some cross-state borders implications coming from that subject as well that we'll get to here in just a minute, I do promise. But at least here in the Borderland area, immediately, a couple of major things, including that Crime Lab finally looking at that expansion here in our area for DPS, specifically due to the whole rates and issues that they are seeing. So that's a whole fun situation from our news partners at KFOX 14, naming the expansion of that as is probably pretty important. But more specifically than that, there's also then a lot of anti-trespassing things going on. Specifically, the El Paso Chamber sending it out this technically end of last week that they have put up a whole lot more signs around the Star on the Mountain. So we had talked about this most recently, that there was a, what's the right way to put it, spate. Well, spate would make it seem like that there was an end to it, and it does not appear that that is the case, because very specifically there have continued to be trespassing and potential vandals around the Star on the Mountain. And I mean, some people have even apparently, given the placement of some of these no trespassing signs, makes me think that they're starting their trek right up there on Scenic Drive, or specifically at this scenic overlook, because that's at least where one of the major ones of them. But the sign specifically coming as part of a new strategy, as El Paso Chamber says, police continue to encounter and arrest people on and around the area. So doing interviews and sending out more releases about what the heck is going on in and around the area, because again, people keep doing it. They keep just going and thinking that traipsing around the Star on the Mountain is an okay thing to do. Hey, there's no trails there. Let's just make that perfectly clear. I mean, there might be, the technical stuff, of course, the lines and the maintenance required on them, but there's no like marked trails or easily accessible ways to get there, because it's the Star on the Mountain. So the fact that they've had to put up the signs on it is a little, okay, I'd want to call it silly, but it's obviously a little bit more than that. So kind of in the same vein, if not exactly the same intensity or covering the same area, I do have to say, is that the El Paso Police Department first announced it earlier in this year, but they've been now putting out more information on it, that they're going to be trying to achieve a goal of having 300 security cameras in areas with high crime by October of 2024, according to our news partners at KFlux 14. Specifically noted 44 venues across the city of El Paso, and saying that the goal is to have public safety, make sure the community is safe. They are not giving up the exact location of the cameras, but the plan is for them to be strategically located in high activity areas throughout the city for constant monitoring, including Sun Metro areas, skate parks, city parks, entertainment districts, senior centers, and recreation centers, plus more. A spokesperson for the El Paso Police Department saying specifically all of these areas are the strategic locations that our cross-functional teams are the cross-functional teams identified with, which was used by data-driven information to identify these places. We're going to use that information to get the most we can with the cameras that we're going to install. And so I think it'll be kind of okay, I'm not going to call this totally a London situation, which I think still ranks as one of the most concentrated, the most concentrated monitored areas in the world. But again, 300 cameras by, basically about next year, October of 2024. So that'll be to see how well that works and the staffing that would have to come along with that, because it's one thing to have cameras, but they certainly can, I mean, if they're not monitored, it kind of is then a post facto of okay, this looks like what happened, as opposed to a prevention aspect. I guess the deterrent part of it would also come along with it, the whole idea of, a cop on a corner, so to speak, as therefore being a more presence, making it seem like someone is less inclined to then take a questionable at best action, but we'll see. But again, also on the other part of law enforcement and, well, not the prevention, but the prosecution side of it, finally seeing that, again, the expansion of the Texas DPS headquarters in our region, particularly for the crime lab backlog. Some of the previous actions that we've talked about on this program is including the way that the district attorney for El Paso is prioritizing cases, basically moving those that do not require crime lab verification to the front of the line in order to allow for more time for that backlog to be addressed, things having to be sent out of town. So news partners at KFox 14 quoting Jose Sanchez, regional director for the West Texas region of Texas Department of Public Safety. It's not a tautology. There is some redundancy in those names there, saying that they've outgrown the building, and there was not a plan to have a regional headquarters back in 2009. So Sanchez saying, quote, once we did become a regional headquarters, we have been trying to get that building and facility because we knew we were going to grow. We have already grown every office that we're at currently. I mean, we've increased troopers by 4 or 5 times the amount. We've increased our CID agents by that much more. There's everything, and there's more positions we could add to the regional headquarters, but we can't do it because we don't have office space right now. and they're at about 2,600 square feet, and they're trying to put it more in line with the original office in Lubbock, which is 26,000 square feet, currently 82,000 square feet, what they're looking for specifically. So, and also looking to, I think, quintuple at the very least the amount of specific size to get in line with Lubbock of the crime lab area specifically. So this is an ongoing issue, and particularly given the presence, there has been kind of waxing and waning. Not exact numbers have ever been released that I'm aware of when it comes to, again, DPS state trooper presence in our area, but there have been a few different efforts over the years. One of the first times that I can really specifically noticing an increase was when specifically the Pope visited Juarez. Anyone remember that time around? Because, I mean, sure, did not come to this side of it. There was still a hell of a lot of presence. I was in South Central El Paso, in Segundo Barrio, right along the, I guess that would have been Paisano, or well, I guess technically now it's part of Loop 375, even if it may not have been considered at that time, near the railroad tracks across from El Puente and Juarez. And the amount of police presence that was in, you couldn't even get into Segundo Barrio. Basically, you could not get south of Paisano on that day. And they were working in TV at that time. We had pre-positioned some vehicles that gave us a little bit of mobility, but not like a lot, because if you weren't already set up there. And so DPS, I mean, there's a whole lot of, I'm going to assume every three-letter agency you've heard of, and a lot that you hadn't were probably activated and ready to go on that day. I mean, the amount of material and resources that were rolling around that day, including a lot of DPS specifically. And at that point, I remember hearing from some friends of saying, very colloquially, are there a lot more stadies around right now? And that very much seemed to be the case. So that's one instance that comes to mind. Then there was, of course, Operation Lone Star, of which, again, levels have never been exactly released that have come along with it. But more specifically, there's just been a lot more staffing. And that is being commented on specifically, again, by DPS on that, and how much more there is. So making this into also just a bunch of different enforcement efforts, including, remember when they did that more recently, not exactly the shutdown, but the increased 100% inspection of all cross-border, not traffic, but cargo trailers specifically, and all the backlog that came along with that. So I'm not saying that DPS has never been unpresent in the Borderland region, but they certainly have been a lot more present most recently. So a lot of different law enforcement techniques and avenues being explored right in our region, I would say, as RJ says, specifically in reference to the cameras that are seeking to be installed. One idiot vandalizes it, or more specifically on the star there on the mountain. One idiot vandalizes it, and then you get 20 more who want to make a TikTok video of themselves vandalizing the star. Criminals aren't very bright. I will say, I don't really use TikTok because of a whole lot of reasons, but including time. I spend enough time on the internet as it is. But the idea of people documenting their crimes is just, I am going to continue to be baffled by that. Of, at the very least, like, it's just a simple risk reward calculation of being, hey, I might get someone to say, hey, dude, that was cool, maybe, and that's in the best case scenario, by something that I did stupid online, versus I could be sent to jail. Like, the risk versus reward levels there, the math ain't mathin' there for me. As we also have Willie Jenkins, what up to you as well, as we're talking about a lot of things going on and affecting us here in the Borderland. So yeah, the idea of anyone doing anything and recording your crimes, if there was a criminal 101, that would have to be like page 1, sentence 1, don't record your crimes. Just come on. There's not, again, this common sense ain't that common, I guess, is what it comes down to these days. So, a few of the crime-related things going on in our area, but let's go ahead and take that next break right now, and then coming out of this break, we'll talk even further about some other, well, certainly crime-related, but not immediately in our area, but affecting certainly the land of enchantment, as we do talk about the state-level news. And this certainly would affect people in our region. The now impeachment being considered against the governor of New Mexico in response to the 30-day suspension of concealed and open carry in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. It's a busy Monday, y'all, and we'll get right back into it after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Phone lines in a bit. Stay tuned. Hammer and Nails. Not only is it one of El Paso's newest men's grooming destinations and one I've been talking about here for a bit, looking forward to getting my next appointment, meeting up with them again here this week, which means that we're going to be that much closer to doing that next giveaway. Again, the best sneak peek that we'll give y'all will happen over on our social media, so we'll be making the post there, probably with a quick little live or something like that, so stay tuned on the usual channels if you got the ability to do so. But of course, they are open whenever you need them to, currently online to book that appointment, and then they got their regular hours as they're located over at the Fountains of Era lower level, 8889 Gateway Boulevard West, Suite 1760. HammerandNailsGrooming.com is the place that you can, again, anytime, day or night, go and make your appointment. Took me less than 5 minutes, even exploring all of the options. And what I ended up going through, got myself the premium cut and premium beard grooming. And I think it served me pretty well. Those over on our social media can comment better on it. But in any case, they've got those options, including, of course, their Club Lux, one of their newer options for one monthly price, unlimited services, including the ability to bring a friend and discounts on their products. So all the details on them, including, again, booking your appointment, HammerandNailsGrooming.com. That's HammerandNailsGrooming.com. And I'll see you there.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your KFOX 14 News Update, I'm Liz DeWicki. A Bowie High School student who collapsed during a football game on Friday has died. Daniel Esparza was a 17-year-old member of the Bowie High School band. The game between Bowie High School and Isleta High School was canceled Friday due to that medical emergency. The El Paso School District saying a team of counselors is available to Bowie students and staff. About 10 students from Mayfield High School collapsing during a 9/11 memorial program on Monday morning. Las Cruces Public Schools saying the students were members of ROTC. District officials saying the cadets were apparently locking their knees and dehydrated as well. A spokesperson saying all the students are now doing fine. New Mexico Republican state lawmakers are calling for the governor's impeachment after she issued a temporary ban on firearms through a public health emergency order. The new rule even applies to those with open and concealed carry permits, sparking backlash from all sides. State representatives are leading the measure, saying they believe they can get their Democratic colleagues on board. Governor Michelle Grisham issuing that 30-day order last week, calling it a response to the recent shooting deaths of 2 children. With your KFOX 14 News Update, I'm Liz DeWicki.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Just one crash right now in your El Paso Borderland traffic. Gateway West at Viscount. Police are still on the scene of that accident. I-10 westbound is slow from Thorne to past Trans Mountain with 10-minute delays. North Mesa Street from the downtown exits up to North Desert is a 5-minute delay. And just a reminder, the eastbound off-ramps remain closed off the I-10 for Trans Mountain, Artcraft, and Red. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the CBS 401 Weather Center, this is meteorologist Evan O'Regan. Well, we sit currently at 69 days of triple digits on the year. We're going to get very close, if not getting to number 70 this afternoon, calling for a high of 100 exactly here in the Sun City, 97 up in Las Cruces. There's also a 20% chance of seeing an afternoon shower or storm if we start to see some more moisture work into the area for today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. So watch that very carefully going throughout the week as rain chances will be on the rise. From the CBS 401 Weather Center, this is meteorologist Evan O'Regan.
This report is sponsored by Macy's Backstage. What will you find at Macy's Backstage? Here's a hint. Fall finds for $25 and under, like sharp blazers, cozy sweaters, cargo pants, jackets, and more. Find the latest trends and new arrivals at a Macy's Backstage store near you.
This is an important notice to all U.S. taxpayers. The IRS is giving away billions of dollars in tax savings through a federal program called the Fresh Start Initiative to aid delinquent taxpayers. This initiative was established for anyone facing financial hardship and unable to pay their back taxes. Qualifying and enrolling in this program will stop all collections, settle your delinquent tax problem, and even reduce what you owe by thousands of dollars. Call the hotline at People's Tax Relief to see if you qualify and get this free information by dialing 800-727-9105. If you have unfiled tax returns or cannot afford to pay your personal or business back taxes, you can now get the help you need. One simple phone call can resolve your tax problem and save you thousands of dollars. To see if you qualify and to get this important free information, call 800-727-9105. 800-727-9105. 800-727-9105.
Caring for a loved one takes emotional, physical, and mental strength. When you're giving your all, who's supporting your needs as a caregiver? Find resources at texascaregivers.org. Brought to you by Texas Health and Human Services.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. If you're like many people, you may think custom blinds is a job for expensive professionals. Well, at Blindster, if you have a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install our custom blinds and save big. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, being on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Yeah, a lot of conversation, a lot of things going on and being discussed, as well as, again, I've often said, there's plenty of stuff that happens over the weekend, which may not make sense until you see circumstances like we got going on here today. A lot of people already chiming in on this, including Ed Clore putting it in very local-ish, or at least our airwave term. Frankie can't open carry, but can carry an open whiskey container. Okay, I get the joke. Technically correct, because what we're talking about here is the action specifically out of the office of Michelle Lujan Grisham, governor for the state of New Mexico. Well, I'll just start with her release on the action taken technically on Friday, but certainly getting most of the attention over the end of last week. Headline from her office in the release: Governor announces statewide enforcement plan for gun violence, fentanyl reduction. Plan includes 30-day suspension of concealed and open carry in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. So specifically, and in the first line of it, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham announced on Friday a new public health order that outlines immediate actions aimed at quickly reducing gun violence and illegal drug use in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, noting the recent shooting deaths of a 13-year-old girl on July 28th, a 5-year-old girl on August 14th, an 11-year-old boy on September 6th, as well as two mass shootings this year, spurred the governor to declare a gun violence a public health emergency on Thursday. And the public health order includes directives to curb the gun violence and drug abuse that governor has declared to be public health emergencies. So direct quote from the governor in this case, quote, "As I said yesterday, the time for standard measures has passed, and when New Mexicans are afraid to be in crowds, to take their kids to school, to leave a baseball game, when their very right to exist is threatened by the prospect of violence at every turn, something is very wrong." And so Friday, signing executive order declaring illegal drugs a public health emergency. And again, specifically, the action includes a suspension of open and concealed carry laws in Bernalillo County, temporarily prohibiting the carrying of guns on public property with certain exemptions, including for licensed security guards and law enforcement officers. Citizens with permits to carry firearms are free to possess their weapons on private property, such as a gun range or at a gun store, provided they transport the firearm in a locked box using a trigger lock or some other mechanism that renders the gun incapable of being fired. So that's, again, on the order sign, go into effect immediately. And so some more conversation coming up there already. Willie Jenkins saying that the 30-day response is stupid from New Mexico. And that's why, again, Ed, I get the joke. But only technically the carrying and that affected in, again, Albuquerque and its county. Though, and also open containers, I do not believe are allowable in public in New Mexico or any other particular state. RJ referring to mean or a little tyrant in New Mexico with Governor Grisham, saying she has gone to calling it a health emergency. The criminals will carry their guns while the law-abiding are left defenseless. Pure genius. I've seen a couple of editorializations, including editorial cartoons involving the figure of Walter White and free reign, things like that. Your imagination take flight, I'm sure, there. And Willie Jenkins referring to it as an abuse of power as well. But so some of the actions that have come along with this, and also Eric von Holstein-Rathel responding, I'm sure all the criminals will apply. That was at least part of the questioning that I was seeing in some of these news conferences being held over the weekend as well, including the question of, okay, we're referring to crimes that happened, which are legal. Why was more enforcement needed? And it seems to me, at least in my initial analysis, that the idea of the debate is the major part that at least the governor's staff is now focusing on, including Okay, there was immediate action happening in opposition to this, as was come as no surprise, including at least one lawsuit specifically seeking to enjoin or put an injunction against this. A law professor in L.A. said that the governor's action Friday was an attempt to, quote, move the debate, according to the AP on this. So, and specifically the group suing is the National Association for Gun Rights. Interesting organization, unfortunate acronym, I do have to say, NAGR, because that reads to me like nagger, like a person that is nagging someone, but I don't know. It's if they do the work that they do. But in any case, what they are, and again, more from other analysis and even from our aides about, and even from the governor herself, saying specifically on the news conference on Friday, again noted by the AP here, Lujan Grisham, quote, "I welcome the debate and fight about how to make New Mexicans safer," end quote. I gotta say, of the possibilities and ways to foster a debate, the impact on fundamental rights as guaranteed by the Constitution is at the very least an interesting, if maybe ill-advised, way to go about it. And the response has been very, very interesting. One of the ones that stood out to me the most is that over on Twitter, or I guess X technically, I'm still not used to that one, David Hogg, who is notably a anti-gun activist, for anyone who is familiar with that person, is that posting about this, saying specifically, at least a couple of different posts, including, I support gun safety, but there is no such thing as a state public health emergency exception to the U.S. Constitution. And also retweeting in his case from Ted Lieu, Lieu, tweet saying, "I support gun safety laws. However, this order from the new governor of New Mexico violates the U.S. Constitution. No state in the union can suspend the federal Constitution. There is no such thing as a state public health emergency exception to the U.S. Constitution." And that's at least part of the whole kerfuffle on this, and as has been now further being reported on, besides the lawsuits and many other things going on that way, our news partners at KFOX 14, that there has been now calls for impeachment with a couple of New Mexico state lawmakers calling for the temporary ban being met with a impeachment. So specifically, state reps Stefani Lord and John Block leading the measure, saying that they believe they can get their Democratic colleagues on board. And there's more, including in from that same article, the same title, from our news partners at KFOX 14, tweets that the governor has sent out in support of this, including noting about 11-year-old Froylan Villegas leaving a baseball game with his mom, aunt, and baby brother when he was shot and killed last week, and asking for information on this. And also there's been even pushback from other law enforcement officials, including at least one present within Bernalillo County itself, saying that they will not be enforcing this action. And Albuquerque's Democratic Sheriff John Allen specifically says, "We don't agree with this at all. This is unconstitutional. We're not enforcing it." And, a spokesperson for the governor said state police will enforce the order and issue citation to those who violate it, which by my understanding could be subject to at least a $5,000 fine. Let me find that exact citation here. This causing, according to the AP in this case, face civil penalties and a fine of up to $5,000, according to a spokesperson for the governor, Carolyn Sweeney. So this is an interesting one, and one that was definitely blowing up my feed over the weekend, and why I think it'll probably continuing to generate a lot of discussion into the continuation of this week, whether or not, again, if the focus is just on the debate, if this still be focused on, I'll say this on the perspective of Albuquerque specifically, some talking about that very specifically, about Albuquerque being Ion Graham saying, among other things, I don't think we get the full comment on screen, so I'll just paraphrase part of it, saying, "Unfortunately, Albuquerque is becoming really bad, almost like Portland, with the homeless and violence. Stores have merchandise locked up and people don't go out after 8. And I'll just say, even just from a news coverage standpoint, so El Paso and Albuquerque as TV markets are similar-ish, except for the fact that you're mostly in not even just amount of households there. We're in hovering around the 90s in terms of how many households are considered in the El Paso Las Cruces market. but and then sort of about the 90s, and Albuquerque's in like the occasionally moves around a little bit, but in about like the high 40s, low 50s overall, and like with number one being New York with the most households in the country, just for perspective there. But of course, El Paso, we don't get to count Juarez or any of those surrounding areas as part of the household. So the argument I continue to make is that they are very similar. Point is that in the way news is reported in our area, El Paso, at the very least, most recently I've had a conversation with people about how news is generated and how stories are come up with. El Paso was still considered what's known as an enterprise market, meaning that there's a lot of, developing stories, tracking down sources, bringing things to the table that are not just breaking news. Whereas Albuquerque was, and definitely was at the very least, better part of, how long am I doing this now? Let's call it better part of a decade ago, considered a crime-driven market in terms of responding to and doing immediate follow-ups on major crimes, gathering headlines. I want to say, like, one of those examples was the gunfight that happened with a suspect that was then on police body camera, among other things. So that's what drives the news up in that when it comes to the local news coverage, because they have to respond to that. And that's what is their major focus. So that's already been a key difference between our areas. So is a response necessary to what has been going on? And again, crime and related concerns and issues, pretty obviously, I would say. And this has been an ongoing issue. But is this the way to go about it? Or at the very least, from the response being seen to it, am I at all surprised that people are suing or at the very least loudly talking about impeachment possibilities? I can't say I'm surprised there, very specifically. John Adams specifically blaming marijuana. I will say that some of those issues I'm talking about were going on well before the last couple few years that we have seen marijuana be possible there, though I guess an argument made that may have ramped up with John saying decriminalization of marijuana has ruined a lot of cities, as we also have Marco for mayor, hi y'all, and Edgar Ortiz on board with us also over on the social media as well. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of takes and a lot of discussion about this. So let's go ahead and take that next break and open up those phone lines as we would usually do, but maybe a little bit earlier than we would sometimes get to most recently. So if you want to get on that line, add your 2 cents on this or the other things going on and affecting us here in the Borderland, the number to do so is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso area businesses, you're invited to join Texas Mutual Insurance Company for the free WorkSafe Texas Summit on Tuesday, September 19th at the Hotel Paso del Norte. Get information on workplace safety, OSHA, and more. Register at texasmutual.com/summit.
Different aspects of what is possible when it comes to safety and compliance in our region. It's a 2.5-hour event with a free breakfast, and you do have the ability to register for free. Space is limited, so make sure to register by tomorrow, September 12th, texasmutual.com/summit. That's again, texasmutual.com/summit. It will include a free breakfast, parking validation will be provided, and also the opportunity to network with other business owners and safety professionals, plus 2 at least Q&A interactive sessions with safety experts. So again, all the details there, texasmutual.com/summit. Again, texasmutual, mutual.com/SUMMIT. And again, that WorkSafe Texas Summit happening Tuesday, September 19th at the Hotel Paso del Norte in downtown El Paso.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Just one crash right now in your El Paso borderland traffic. Gateway West at Viscount. Police are still on the scene of that accident. I-10 westbound is slow from Thorne to past Trans Mountain with 10-minute delays. North Mesa Street from the downtown exits up to North Desert is a 5-minute delay. And just a reminder, the eastbound off-ramps remain closed off the I-10 for Trans Mountain, Artcraft, and Red. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
Now your ideas don't have to wait. Dell Technologies and Intel are pushing what technology can do, so great ideas can happen right now. Find out how to bring your ideas to life at Dell.com. Welcome to now.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
This planet is so incredibly beautiful that I can't get enough of it. I did 950 miles on the Pacific Crest Trail, and Good Feet was with me all the way.
Hi, this is Mike with the Good Feet store. Are you ready for summer adventures?
Don't let your feet get in the way. Learn how the Good Feet store can help.
Your passion's important, but if your body aches and if your heel feels like you've got a nail stuck in it and won't come out, trust me, it's going to wear you down. The Good Feet store knew what they were talking about and took the time to really dial in what I needed. I hiked 84 miles in the Himalaya and to do it pain-free. You think I'm not grateful for Good Feet?
You deserve comfort in your life, too. Sandal season is here, and Good Feet fits into all your summer shoes, even flip-flops. Visit the Good Feet store today for your free fitting and test walk.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Schedule your appointment today at goodfeet.com.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and superior protection. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today. For good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog. At Petco, Stater Brothers, H-E-B, and more. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Since 2010, Blindster has sold millions of custom blinds, shades, and shutters to satisfied customers across the country with 20,000 5-star reviews and an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, over on the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, or through those phone lines, full up at the moment, but keep that number handy as we'll keep it going throughout the entire second hour of the program, as we usually do as well. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, that number to call. And a lot of commentary come in, a lot of questions, including about what the impeachment will be based on. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but actually we do have a caller from Las Cruces on the line with us here right now. We do have Mark calling in from Las Cruces on the line with us right now. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I find it interesting that, you know, if she thinks having law-abiding citizens lock up their guns, that she should sign an affidavit acknowledging that she's responsible and liable as a representative of the state of New Mexico and individually to be responsible and liable for citizen safety. And this idea that law-abiding citizens with guns create crime is just false.
Yeah, and that, again, was one of the major questions, at least some of the parts of the overall news conference has been being cut up on a lot of places, but one of the ones I saw, it's on a lot of pages focusing on, is in the idea of, okay, these things that the governor is responding to were crimes. None of these, specifically, you know, the injury to children or, you know, killings of them were not being, oh, well, those things just kind of happen. They were crimes in their own right and facing their own investigation. So the idea of therefore impacting either people who had no involvement with them, but impacting their rights and availability leads to questions in my own mind. I'll certainly agree with that as well.
Yeah, and also, since we've opened up our borders and she's welcomed everybody with open arms to New Mexico, including, you know, possible criminals, gang members, and drug traffickers, you're going to get more crime. But she doesn't assess or, make any comment about that.
So, I mean, of course, there have been certain other efforts being put into place in the rest of the state, but the concealed carry and open carry license suspension, I guess, is one of the avenues. I guess is the argument that this is going about being in New Mexico. Well, specifically, and again, Albuquerque and its county. From your perspective, being in the state of New Mexico, is there any concern you have about this going beyond that, or any kind of way in that kind of manner?
Oh, sure. It's like most things that they try to do when they start taking away freedoms and liberties is we take a little bit at a time. And the whole goal is, just like her universal background check, that's so the state makes a gun owner list so they know where to confiscate them if they outlaw them.
All right. Well, appreciate you giving us the point in the call and giving us your perspective on that. You have a good one there.
Okay, you too. Thank you.
All right. And with that, I think we're going to go and have to take that next break right now, getting pretty well close up to the top of the hour here. I will say that addressing one question Ronaldo Rivera did ask specifically, reviewed the grounds for New Mexico impeachment. The grounds are crimes, malfeasance, and misdemeanor. So what grounds will be used essentially in some of the other conversations happening in media, including, yes, I do believe it was on Fox and Friends this morning, that again, those couple of state reps, Stefani Lord and John Buck, specifically accusing her of being unfit for office. And again, the idea of some of these actions being against the oath of office or the Constitution and her oath. So don't know if it technically fits immediately one of those, but maybe malfeasance, or again, not high crimes and misdemeanors in that case. But again, that debate going on there. And RJ saying specifically violating rights and threatening to jail and fine law abiding sounds criminal to me. So more debate and conversation to be had on that, sure. But let's take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of those phone calls. I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion on this and the other things that we are discussing in and around and affecting us in the areas or our broadcast area, which on a good clear night can include all the way up to Albuquerque is my understanding. But in any case, and of course anywhere if you want to talk about the internet these days. But in any case, after this break, coming back and talking a whole lot more about it. Again, that phone number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at the Loop in the Lower Valley. An accident is off to the right. No delays. Southbound Joe Battle at Bob Hopa. Stalled vehicles blocking the right lane. I-10 westbound, 5-minute delays from Thorne up to Las Muchas. And heavy traffic North Mesa from the downtown exits up to North Desert with a 5-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Trade up to a new or certified pre-owned vehicle for thousands less. Right now, our prices are the best in town.
Get huge savings on hundreds of new and certified pre-owned vehicles and more for your trade. For a limited time, everyone gets employee pricing on 2023 Jeep Gladiator trucks and super low 1.9% APR for 72 months. Take $6,000 off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 trucks or 2.9% APR for 72 months. Take $2,500 off MSRP on 2023 Dodge Charger and Challenger. Get $2,500 off MSRP on 2023 Chrysler 300. Worried about your credit or worried that you're upside down on your trade? Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect or if you owe more than your trade is worth. Get huge savings and more for your trade during the Make This the Summer Sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Includes factory rebate dealer discount plus TTNL. 1.9% APR is $1,471 and 2.9% is $1,515 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
KTSM AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station.
Don't miss our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Are you ready?
See Foo Fighters, Kelly Clarkson, Tim McGraw, and many more. Friday and Saturday, September 22nd and 23rd.
iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is marking the 22nd anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks at a memorial ceremony in Alaska. He said he felt like he was looking at the gates of hell in the aftermath of the attack.
It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
The president said everyone's heart was wounded on that day. He met with first responders and military members at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage. The death toll in Morocco is over 2,800 after Friday's earthquake. Thousands were injured as the quake was the strongest to hit the nation in more than a century. Officials at the American embassy in the Moroccan capital say they're not aware of any American fatalities. The Northeast region is bracing for Hurricane Lee as it barrels through the Atlantic Ocean. The Category 3 hurricane is expected to weaken, grow in size, and speed up once it takes a turn for the Northeast by the middle of the week. It's not clear if Lee will hit the East Coast, but it's expected to be nestled between Bermuda and North Carolina by Friday. Drew Barrymore is facing backlash for resuming taping of her talk show as the writers' strike continues. Lisa Taylor has more.
More than a dozen protesters picketed outside CBS studios in New York City on Monday as production of The Drew Barrymore Show began production of its new season. A number of Hollywood actors criticized Barrymore, questioning who would be writing her show during the strike. On Sunday, Barrymore responded by saying the show is in compliance. On social media, 2 audience members claimed they got kicked out of Monday's taping for wearing pins supporting the Writers Guild of America. A spokesperson for the show said it regrets that the audience members were not permitted to attend.
It's a record year at the U.S. Open in New York. The U.S. Tennis Association says over the 3 weeks, more than 957,000 fans visited the grounds, which sets a new record. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. An infectious disease expert says she agrees with Dr. Anthony Fauci's prediction that the government likely won't mandate masks due to the latest uptick in COVID, but she warns variants are out there.
Either stay home or, use a mask when you're out and about. That's the polite, proper thing to do so that you don't spread whatever germs you have, whether it's RSV or influenza or COVID.
Flu expert Dr. Aileen Marty says, fortunately, a new COVID vaccine will be released very soon. And she says it, along with the mask, will provide an extra layer of protection against new COVID variants. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell may have to appear in a Denver court following a series of heated legal depositions. Eric Coomer, director of Denver-based Dominion Voting Systems, is suing Lindell for defamation, saying the CEO suggested that he's a traitor who rigged the 2020 presidential election. Lindell reportedly became vulgar and threatening during depositions with Coomer's legal team, and they say he even walked out of one last month. A large drug bust is being reported along I-95 in Virginia involving several teens. The details from Richard Stelling.
3 teenagers from Prince William County were arrested last week in what is being called a significant drug bust. Police in Spotsylvania attempted to stop a car that was speeding and had no front license tag on I-95 last Thursday. The vehicle eventually stopped on its own. A search reportedly revealed over 1,000 fentanyl pills and 2 semi-automatic handguns. The teens all face drug and weapons charges, while one was also wanted on outstanding warrants.
Nicki Minaj is returning to the MTV VMAs stage. She'll be hosting the 2023 MTV Video Music Awards tomorrow at the Prudential Center in Newark. The VMAs are happening live at 8 p.m. Eastern. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
The countdown is on to our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
The most massive live music event of the year.
Friday and Saturday, September 22nd and 23rd at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
The Hartford Small Business Insurance knows that opening a small business is a great achievement. Thanks to all the owners for all they do to keep our communities vibrant and strong. Learn more about the Hartford Small Business Insurance and why over 1 million small business owners trust them. Visit thehartford.com/smallbusiness.
This report is sponsored by Macy's Backstage. What will you find at Macy's Backstage? Here's a hint. Fall finds for $25 and under, like sharp blazers, cozy sweaters, cargo pants, jackets, and more. Find the latest trends and new arrivals at a Macy's Backstage store near you.
Tuesdays.
We'll find out who loves football.
Inside the NFL has a new home, and it's only on the CW.
We got to win every time we step on the field. I'm excited that we back. Let's go!
And now it's for everyone.
Dominate from the first step to the last step.
with new host Ryan Clark and analysts Channing Crowder, Chris Long, Chad Johnson, Jay Cutler.
What a play.
The all-new Inside the NFL.
Touchdown!
Tuesdays at 8, 7 Central. Stream free next day. Now on the CW.
Why is iHeartRadio the #1 streaming radio app? Free music.
Free live radio stations from all over the country.
Free podcasts.
Free playlists.
Free contests. Free artist radio stations.
Commercial-free stations. It's free. I love iHeartRadio. Join the millions of music, radio, and podcast fans on the #1 streaming radio app now.
iHeartRadio.
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 Free never sounded so good.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and whatever, just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of different conversation, a lot of it specifically being talked about in regards to, it was, ever since I saw it, okay, I have this personal conspiracy theory that all the big news happens, certainly the things we talk about in the coming shows, but like right after we get off air, almost, maybe not every day, but if it's going to happen, it'll be like right after we get the chance to talk about it. And so this one happening Friday, and then certainly seeing it blow up in the, coverage on just over the weekend, maybe just got to reinforce that personal belief about it. It's not a conspiracy theory if they're actually out to get you. In any case, point is that we got a lot of conversation on this, including the oath of office and conversation specifically about how would an impeachment go forth here, including Renato Rivera saying that when it comes to the action of, again, New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham and in this emergency public health order and the impacts it's happening on gun rights and arguably the Second Amendment overall, Renato Rivera saying, quote, "I don't agree with her, but I'm wondering if impeachment process is being overused. The investigations could be justified, but since it started being used, they investigate for everything." Some further conversation going on about that, including RJ saying impeachment has become political to the point it's lost its original intent to convict for high crimes and misdemeanors, convict on crimes, etc. And other impeachments, Leonidas Bermuda mentioning best impeachment ever was when I fired my ex-wife. I think you might be getting your processes confused there, my dude. But in any case, other comments coming in, such as about the voting for Diane Graham saying, remind me who voted her into office, stop complaining and do something, vote. Certainly, there's also Mondo Mancanda chiming in and saying that, referring to MLG for the New Mexico governor, seems to have a complete disregard for the U.S. Constitution, but also Marco for mayor over on the YouTube, specifically saying, let's never forget all those brave souls who lost their lives on this day 22 years ago, because it is, of course, 9/11 and the commemorations, even as it's starting to pass out of, okay, maybe not living memory, still plenty alive to remember it, but the next generations. There are people who are now fully grown and even into careers that do not have memory of it. And so they'll never forget part of it is truly going to be an important aspect going forward. And in these coming years, decades, and just a long time, I'll just say that there. So there's a lot of conversation going on. And of course, we have those phone lines open if full up at the moment. That number to call is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Open throughout the rest of the show, but again, there will be probably pretty well full up. So one call and the line becomes available. So just be quick on the button there and you'll be good to go. But in any case, let's just dive right back into those. And well, one more comment I'll get to right there. Marky Mendingo says, can't violate the Constitution. Like Thanksgiving in 2020, New Mexico said Texans couldn't come. I did. A great fried turkey. And I drove through that order with Texan pride. So, Yeah, and Trader Sack also taking some issue with the president making his remarks on 9/11 from Alaska, which, I mean, I get it. It's not, I mean, New York would have been more appropriate, but also coming back from any of those, well, the many events that were going on overseas. So, yeah, I guess you can take issue about that. I can't tell you what to do. But in any case, let's dive right back into those phone lines here again, 915-544-5876. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Sure thing. What's on your mind?
Okay, reference Michelle Lujan Grisham. There was actually two executive orders issued.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, one was 2023-130. That was issued by the governor's office, and 2023-132 issued by the New Mexico Department of Health.
Right, because, I mean, again, the guns has taken up a lot of the air in the room, but as we mentioned it again, yeah, you see it from the actual release coming out from the governor's office, governor.state.nm.us, but I'll tell you what, I'll see if I can post up that link to get it over there. So because, yeah, the fentanyl reduction is another important part about this, and that's where I guess maybe the initial kind of hat hanging on public health really does end up lying or resting on, but the mention that the plan does include that 30-day suspension of concealed and open carry in specifically Albuquerque and its surrounding county. Again, that's been taking up most of the air in the room, I think would be pretty fair to say.
Well, I won't go. I mean, I spent literally 6 hours of my time this weekend researching this. I won't go too much into the legal diatribe like I usually do, but
fair enough.
Okay. In both, nothing is cited in either the NMSA 1978, which is the New Mexico, the creation of the New Mexico State Department of Health, and what is also referred to as the All Hazards Emergency Act. Nothing in there gives the governor the authority to declare firearms-related injuries or deaths as a public health crisis.
Yeah, there's another aspect also does come to mind here, not exactly what you're quoting, but of basically the duty of police, and at least maybe it was our last caller on the idea, or at the very least when it comes to the whole, serve and protect, the model that we expect from, pretty much any major and public-facing law enforcement agency, because that is, again, what the expectation is, though it, of course, has been ruled by the Supreme Court that protection only extends to those immediately under the responsibility and more specifically the custody of a law enforcement agency, because it is, well, there is no immediate duty provided to everyone in particular.
Correct. Now that leads me to my next point. Okay, not only is she circumventing the U.S. Constitution, Second Amendment, but the New Mexico State Constitution, Article 11, Section 6, and also Heller. Now, the overriding factor that prohibits her from doing this is basically case law under the Bateman versus Purdue, which states that emergency declarations that suspend the Second Amendment are unconstitutional.
Yeah, and I want to say that that's probably the most significant part, the unconstitutionality of this and the continued debate going on. And, okay, it is debate at this point with at least, again, one court case being filed. And, I mean, as much as impeachment is being threatened, impeachment is I know people have been saying it as kind of a dig against it, but, I mean, it is a political process, meaning that it does take politics being behind it, and the consequences end up being mostly political. I mean, they can't, through an impeachment process, end up like throwing her in jail or anything like that. So, point is that they can remove her from office potentially if this were to move forward. But even that moving forward part, as much as there has been optimistic talk on the part of those again, couple of state legislators that have been pushing for this and appearing on national media to talk about it, it's still going to take politics to see it through.
Yes, I agree. But now the overriding factor on this is Bruin. But one of the things that caught my attention was when reporters asked her at a press conference about this. Okay, number one, she said the lawful gun owners are not the problem, and they never have been the problem. And next, they asked her, okay, are you going to, do you think criminals are going to obey this executive order? And she flat out said no. So what is the need for this suspension of concealed or open carry?
Yeah, and again, so from at least from my analysis and reading through the statements and the different things and things that are coming out in reported articles on this is about fostering the debate. Okay, not exactly a direct quote from there, but that being the idea behind it. See if I can find the direct quote about this. At the news conference in which she announced the signing of the action and more specifically, the civil penalties and that fine of up to $5,000, according to a governor spokesperson Carolyn Sweeney. What Lujan Grisham did say was, quote, "I welcome the debate and fight about how to make New Mexicans safer." So from my 2 cents on this is that seems to be the focus of taking extreme action in order to get people to think about it, though I'm wondering if this is a bit off way more than can chew kind of moment, given what has immediately and the not surprising response has already been coming along from this.
Well, let me tell you, when she starts saying that no rights are absolute and neither is her oath, okay, and if she wants to foster a debate on public safety, she can start by resigning from office, because this is a blatant violation of the constitutional rights, not only of her, the citizens of New Mexico, but the citizens of the state of Texas that go to Bernalillo County or any place in New Mexico, because this can be enforced. She can bring up this executive order and apply it to the entire state, and then we in the state of Texas who cross into New Mexico, we're subject to a fine. Oh, incidentally, she said she didn't know if it could be punished as a misdemeanor.
Yeah, and so that might be, again, there's a lot of armchair and like Monday morning quarterbacking going on with this already, even though we're still in the midst of it. But at least part of the analysis that I've seen, and I'm tending to agree with it, the idea of making this a civil penalty would make it more of a, I don't know, less able to therefore be gone against, as opposed to, if it was jail time, color of law, all those kind of things. So there's a lot of intricacies going into this. And that's why, if you're just wanting to foster debate, it kind of feels like killing a cockroach with a kiloton nuke, but we're here already.
Okay, well, that leads me to my next point. Okay, she said that she consulted with Department of Health, Department of Public Safety, New Mexico Homeland Security. I don't see anywhere where she consulted with the state's attorney general, but I can definitely say that the district attorney for Bernalillo County said this is unconstitutional. He was not going to enforce it. Same thing with the Albuquerque police chief.
Right.
They're not going to enforce it. And same thing with the sheriff of Bernalillo County. They're not going to do it. But how in a state, in a city that has 653,000 people and only 517 sworn state police, how's she going to enforce it?
Yeah, relying on the state police has been the avenue being put forth here. And I will say in some of her news conferences as well about really wanting the community to step up. My paraphrasing here again, along the lines of, she didn't say if you see something, say something, but that essentially being the concept that if you see someone with a gun on their hip or something like that, that was similar to the language that she used. Again, not a direct quote, of encouraging people to then call and then have police or law enforcement in the area respond to it. Though, again, given the fact that there has been from the sheriff, no, we will not be enforcing it, from the chief of police in the area, at the very least, a strong concern and hesitation to follow through with the order, given the constitutional implications. I'd wonder how effective even that part of it, of the, kind of, again, my paraphrasing of see something, say something, would really work out.
Well, in the last 24 hours, the sheriff of Bernalillo County said he flat out wasn't going to enforce it.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the last 24 hours. If Governor Grisham is so concerned about public safety in New Mexico, she can start by resigning as of now. Anyway, Andrew, have a good day. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, thank you for the point in the call here. I am gonna just go ahead and call this one. I expect that this will continue to be talked about and evolving over, at the very least, the next 30 days, if not maybe a little bit sooner than that. So I'm sure we'll talk about this again before too long. So again, do appreciate it. You have a good one.
Take care.
All right, with that, let's go ahead and take that next break right now. We do have more calls on the line, and we will be getting to more throughout the progression of this hour, but now a line open, and that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Maser Security Alarms in the Borderland for more than 4 decades at this point, providing safety, security, and peace of mind wherever you may need it, at home, at the office, anywhere in between, where again, that little bit of extra peace of mind and knowing that you've had trusted, reliable, licensed experts able and ready, willing, and again, for more than 40 years, able to do that install. Be sure to ask them about the $690 discount because, of course, they're offering that as they are even here in our building, providing some of that safety and security to our own here, leading to a lot of confidence indeed. So if you want to find them, of course, best way to do so to get your free estimate and find out what they can do for you. The number to call is, of course, 915-590-0033. That's 915-590-0033. Maser Security Alarms.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police and medical are responding to an accident eastbound Paisano Drive at the 110 in the Lower Valley. I-10 eastbound at the Loop. An earlier crash involving 3 vehicles are off to the right. No lanes are blocked. And road debris blocking the right lane. I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino stay to the left. And slow traffic with 10-minute delays. I-10 westbound Thorn up past Trans Mountain. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Macy's Backstage. What will you find at Macy's Backstage? Here's a hint. Fall finds for $25 and under, like sharp blazers, cozy sweaters, cargo pants, jackets, and more. Find the latest trends and new arrivals at a Macy's Backstage store near you.
Liberty Mutual presents How to Be the Life of the Party.
Okay, first turn the music off, then ask for everyone's attention. Now, tell them that you customized your home insurance with Liberty Mutual and saved hundreds. Boom! Now everyone knows you're not just a pretty face. You have some brains inside that face that know how to save hundreds on home insurance. Woo!
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com. Based on recent survey of new customers who switched and saved. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Wireless headphones. That'll be $200.
I'll use my Capital One Quicksilver card.
Now that's a hit. You used the Capital One Quicksilver card, which makes you the hero of every purchase. With Quicksilver, you earn unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase everywhere.
I wanted running music, but unlimited 1.5% cash back is pretty heroic.
Good instincts. Every hero needs a theme song. The Capital One Quicksilver card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of commentary coming in over there in many different ways, including, of course, this being September 11th. Jerry Jacobitz saying, let's talk about veterans and the significant issues coming along with that. I know that a couple of ongoing efforts that honestly have not had the amount of support. They probably have had both veteran support from, global war on terror, even as we have seen that been winding down. I don't think they're issuing those ribbons anymore, are they? The GWAT ones. Don't know any like current or very recent service members in my immediate life. So anyone who has, be curious to know about that one. But also the issues for those that were the first responders on the site and the 9/11 syndrome, among other things. I mean, there are significant things, and they have fallen off of a lot of headlines and have not been anywhere near as sexy to follow up on, and just been costly but the debt is owed. I will definitely say that. In any case, a lot of other commentary, and are just saying, Dad is retired Army sergeant, so I've seen some of the costs. God bless you for serving and your family. Do appreciate that, and certainly echo the sentiment there as well. But let's just jump right back into those phone lines now. Again, that number to call full up at the moment, but keep it handy. 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. We do have Barbara up in Cloudcroft calling us today. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call. We just had a great rainstorm.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And listen, I was calling about President Biden. I guess remain in Mexico policy is now remain in Texas policy.
Being floated
this
anyway.
Is the most vicious, vindictive, and anti-American administration ever. First, he comes out with a trial balloon. I'm thinking of asking Congress for $4 billion to build housing along the southern border. Now that's illegal immigrant families be kept in Texas. I mean, doesn't he hear what's going on in New York City? I mean, the mayor has already said that illegal immigrants are ruining, or she said destroying New York City, that this can't continue. He even went on to say that he can normally see an end to things, but in this case, he says he doesn't see an ending.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's a subliminal message there. He can't see an ending unless, I'm going to put a caveat here, unless we vote out this administration in 2024, and that means our congresswoman too, because they're the ones who are causing this destruction throughout the globe. And then one of the questions that I had when he said we're going to keep illegal immigrant families in Texas, well, I thought the regulations or the policy for crossing is you have to do it on a CBP-1 application, or you have to be one of the 120,000 flying in monthly from those 4 designated countries, or you have to apply for asylum in the first country that you stepped into after you left your country of origin, or you have to report to a port of entry. So is this an admission that they're not expelling anybody into Mexico or to their countries of origin? I mean, this is absolutely horrifying. And then I stop and think. In New York, they were saying that the asylum cases are being scheduled 3 to 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we going to house illegal immigrant families for 3 to 6 years in the El Paso area? And in addition to that, what is the definition of a family? We've seen women and men carrying children that are drugged to the borders. So what is their definition of a family? And are they going to be conducting DNA testing? Because when the government had an opportunity to do that, they refused to do it. So we don't know who's coming or who's going to be in those houses. If it happens, the mayor has told us over and over and over that we are just a thoroughfare for everybody. I'm wondering how proactive he's going to be in jumping on the wagon and say, no, this cannot be done. Congressman Gonzalez has already done that. Our congresswoman is silent. I'm sure she's the first one out there jumping and holding her hand and, waving it around, bring them to El Paso, bring them to El Paso. So there are so many things wrong with this vicious Category 5 Biden policy that he wants to bring to the border. And you know what, Andrew, this comes on the backdrop of a report that recently approximately 75,000 special interest aliens crossed our border. 75,000. These people come from countries that they may have ties to terrorism or have had them. 75,000. And that happened in the first 10 months of this fiscal year. That's up from 3,700 in 2021. I mean, where is our congresswoman saying something that, she's going to, for the first time since this administration went into the White House, that she's going to vote on the side of the El Paso? I mean, Annunciation House is asking for volunteers. We had burnout for volunteers in 2021. City employees were being reassigned to help these with these illegal immigrants. And I noticed that on the city board, they didn't have that this time around, although the OEM, Office of Emergency Management, indicated that it was possible that they were going to have to reassign some city employees to help with this second time around. So there are so many unanswered questions that we deserve answers to. Our Congresswoman has to tell the citizens of El Paso what she's thinking. Well, we already know, but be honest with us. At least tell us, you know what, I want them here. We'll figure it out. But what about the taxes on that? The property taxes, the county hospital, the school taxes on those buildings that we, the taxpayers, will be funding and paying out of our tax dollars. I don't see any other way to pay for all this. I mean, if anybody has any ideas, or I'm seeing this from the wrong point of view, let me know. But I don't see how this is going to help anything other than tell us they don't know what the heck they're doing, which is what they've done from the beginning.
What I will say is that we talked at least a couple of days last week about this, again, being so-called Remain in Texas policy. And some of those questions that you're asking are going to remain questions for the moment, because this came primarily out of an LA Times report that we talked about, with them talking with, I believe, if I remember correctly, 3 insiders within the administration that, case of anonymity, we're not authorized to speak, et cetera, because this has not been officially announced yet, though it has certainly generated a lot of response here. The governor of Texas did respond saying, among other things, promising even more buses. Some of the headlines that just come up here if you search up Remain in Texas policy. So there has been a response from that. And like you said, some of the congressional relationship. I'm not going to try and pretend or put words in the mouth of, El Paso Congresswoman and Democrat Representative Veronica Escobar, though my expectation at this point would be waiting until a policy is announced or until a direct question is put to her. So I guess I'm not surprised about that standpoint. We'll see what happens if this actually moves forward into action. And that's the real point then about, your questions about how would this work, how would they define it? We don't know those answers yet, because all we have is the indication that it's being considered and not actual policy that has been released yet. What'll be interesting to me to see if this ever actually, the policy does see the light of day, given the response that has happened so far, whether it will be continued on forward with maybe some of those questions being directly addressed as part of it. That will be an only time will tell kind of situation. In the meantime, we are, of course, seeing in our local area, again, looking at the numbers that are still borne out for anyone wanting to check and see for themselves, the El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis. That website does show that we are still seeing a slight uptick in the encounters in our area. The release is pretty well level. I think that by this calendar week, we're barely at the start of it, so a little bit early to tell, but we are still seeing not quite at the highest level they have been in the last year or so, but pretty well near, not too far off from it was in the end of last year. Actually, technically, it was the first couple of months, and I'm not good at figuring this part out, the 19th week of this year, we saw the CBP in custody rolling 7-day average 5,500 and change in custody in our local area. So I want to say that was around the time of the end of Title 42 officially. We're at about 4,800 according to that most recent reporting from there. So what those numbers say to me anyway, and looking at similar previous patterns, is that we're not seeing as much direct activity in our area in terms of origination of crossing. And that could be a support aspect of what, of course, the administration has said when it comes to they're not putting forth a Remain in Mexico policy, but with the CBP One app and the enforcement of Title 8, there's a lot of elements very similar to it, I would argue, and why they had said previously that they are seeing a significant decrease in unauthorized crossings. And of course, the further argument that comes along with that is that they've changed what were previous unauthorized into being authorized, but that's a separate discussion than the one you're bringing up. But the fact that we're seeing continued releases in our area or in custody in our area leads me to believe that we are also, again, considering that there is being used as an offshoot area where the main activity is not happening. We still have the resources and availability in our area to do the processing, so there's still the transportations happening to our area in order to facilitate that, which would be a closer to, again, not exactly return to form, but closer to what has happened previously. So that is what is happening at the immediate moment. So when it comes to that policy that has been, you could argue that this was, an authorized leak to float the idea to see what the response would be. I would say that the response has been interesting at best. Some of the other finer points that were also within that LA Times article was along the lines of that if it not exactly only Texas, maybe all border communities, because one of the concerns put forth by, again, the unnamed administration official was along the lines of deporting individuals. You just got to find them, get them into custody, and you deport them. Deporting families, the rule is apparently that you have to get full units together. So when you start dealing with, multiple individuals, not all at one home spot at any given point in time, that makes it difficult. And part of the reason that the concept of the, again, so-called remain in Texas or remain near the border might be a better way to put it, has been, again, arguably being floated by this in order to speed up the ease of that. But again, we're getting into a significant amount of speculation since we don't have policy fully released just yet.
But if we don't ask these questions ahead of time, you can be sure they're not asking any questions and they're not solving any problems. This is how the Biden administration does. They just move forward. They put a balloon up there. And then, like I said last week or the week before, the lead falls on our head. That's just the way they run things. And then after the fact, they're always reactive. They're always out running after a solution after they've messed up and created a Category 5 problem, in my opinion. So,
like I said, we'll see if they actually end up moving forward with this policy or anything similar to the kind of way it has been described, like we've been talking about. I am a little bit dubious at this point, but only time will tell to see. I mean, there's obviously more policy that is going to be needed to become from. No one's saying like, yeah, this is fine. There's nothing like even from either side of the aisle at this point. So there's a significant amount of pressure to continue working on this issue. So I'm sure we will see something before too long. Then the major question is it going to be in the same vein of what we have been hearing about? And again, these initial reports of, or will be significantly changed based on at the very least, initial reaction that has come along already. So I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great evening.
All right. With that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got more calls online. We got more conversations going. A lot of more people chiming in online, dropping those likes and reacts that we'll check in on here as well. But taking that break and getting rounding the bend towards the end of the second hour of the program. But like I said, still a lot more to go on. Still those phone lines open if, may have just filled up. But that number to call in any case, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your KFOX 14 News Update, I'm Liz DeWicki. A Bowie High School student who collapsed during a football game on Friday has died. Daniel Esparza was a 17-year-old member of the Bowie High School band. The game between Bowie High School and Isleta High School was canceled Friday due to that medical emergency. The El Paso School District saying a team of counselors is available to Bowie students and staff. About 10 students from Mayfield High School collapsing during a 9/11 memorial program on Monday morning. Las Cruces Public Schools saying the students were members of ROTC. District officials saying the cadets were apparently locking their knees and dehydrated as well. A spokesperson saying all the students are now doing fine. New Mexico Republican state lawmakers are calling for the governor's impeachment after she issued a temporary ban on firearms through a public health emergency order. The new rule even applies to those with open and concealed carry permits, sparking backlash from all sides. State representatives are leading the measure, saying they believe they can get their Democratic colleagues on board. Governor Michelle Grisham issuing that 30-day order last week, calling it a response to the recent shooting deaths of 2 children. With your KFOX 14 News Update, I'm Liz DeWicki.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
An earlier crash, I-10 eastbound at Loop 375 in the Lower Valley has cleared. All 3 vehicles are off on the right shoulder. I-10 eastbound Lee Trevino, a stalled semi is off to the right. A stalled vehicle is blocking the right lane on South Desert Boulevard just before Trans Mountain in the Upper Valley. And slow, I-10 westbound Thorne to Las Muchas. It's a 7-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. A cool down for our Tuesday. We could be saying goodbye to triple digits for for the year, as finally we start to see more of a seasonal pattern change. 86 for tomorrow, also 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms, so keep the umbrella handy. As we look ahead to your Wednesday, after lows in the 60s, we'll see a high around 88 for your Wednesday with a 30% chance of showers and storms. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Want to save on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom blinds, shades, and shutters at prices less than big box retailers. Order 10 free samples of any product and we'll ship them to you for free. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
You know when you wake up and your mouth feels gross and you just can't wait to brush your teeth to get that clean, fresh feeling again? That's exactly how millions of Navage users feel when they use powered suction to rinse out their noses every day, just like brushing their teeth. Once you're able to breathe deeply without congestion, you never want to be without it. That's why so many people rave about Navage, with over 100,000 online reviews. Feel the Navage difference for yourself. In less than a minute a day, you'll feel immediate relief from seasonal allergies and congestion after the very first use. Navage will also help you sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier, naturally, without drugs. Start breathing clearly again with Navage. Navage is available at Walmart, Walgreens, Target, CVS, Rite Aid, and online at Navage.com. Navage, Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Want to save on new blinds? Blindster.com offers custom blinds, shades, and shutters at prices less than big box retailers. Order 10 free samples of any product and we'll ship them to you for free. And right now, save 50% off any order during our Labor Day sale. Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one where most of the comments and, of course, those likes and reacts do come in, including, right now, Rita Toloan, Jerry Jacobitz, James Ratcliffe, Amber Banda, Angel Rueda, James Holmes, Ida Beza Gardner, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and RJ Promotes. Do appreciate that, and a lot of other conversation going on in a lot of different ways. I'll just say with some of the conversation about other outlets and things like that, I'm not immediately promoting any of the other ones, but I will say that I find it useful to myself to listen to news sources, even though I may inherently disagree with, because getting further perspective often helps craft a better discussion. I have found that there. But of course, Talk El Paso also brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. They do have their fall kickoff sales event in full swing right now, where you can get thousands of dollars off in either cash back or cash allowances for well-qualified buyers on selected models. So see all of their details there, 950 Crockett Street, Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. So get back to those phone lines here right now, squeezing in what we can right before the end of the program, though don't worry, another show is always around the corner. Of course, that number to call is 915-544-5876. And right now we do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
I absolutely love it. And let me tell you something awful, Andrew. Not you, the other awful Andrew.
Sure.
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham is going nowhere. She's not going to resign. And she's just put the kiboshes on all those nut jobs that think it's so cool, so great, so wonderful, some kind of screwball psychotic thinking, running around with weapons on their hips or wherever they're hanging them from, thinking they're so cool. Good for her. Now, yeah, reality? Yeah, it's probably not going to go anywhere. But by the gods of old, everybody out there in the southwest border region, she's trying to be proactive and doing something legitimately, not some kind of political stullyguster, going out there and trying to do something to help preserve the people of Albuquerque. And I'm a big fan of hers. And I don't see anything wrong with it. Yeah, conditionally, with the way things are here, you have all the nut jobs out there, they got to have their guns go bang, 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 and all that kind of stuff. Well, good for her. And that's all I want to say for my opening comment.
Okay, and I understand it. I'm not even saying that I necessarily disagree with her intent of wanting to solve what is a widespread issue. I mean, again, crime in New Mexico and in Albuquerque specifically has been, at the very least, the way to just differences in coverage between like what we do here in El Paso and they do up there, even with similar sizes of populations and even arguably similar issues. It has overtaken what a lot of the coverage ends up being demanded for up there. So I'm not saying that this isn't a problem, but the way to go about it, because again, the primary order involves people who were already law-abiding and not even implicated in these particular crimes. So, okay, to put it a little bit more personally for you, if there were to be, a declaration of saying, hey, drunk driving is such an issue, let's take it away from the car thing, that we're actually going to be limiting alcohol sales for the next 30 days in order to put a curb on that issue. So affecting perhaps yourself or other people that you know personally for an issue that you did not cause and were not a part of, you might maybe see why this could be bringing up some concerns. Frankie?
Well, yeah. Well, again, look. I mean, look. This is, you can't just easily say she's going to go out there and do it. It is a public issue, a health issue. Yeah, people are getting shot. She's trying to be proactive about it. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, the thing is going to fall flat on its face because of all the obvious reasons. But at least she's trying to do something. And I don't see any reason whatsoever, like awful Andrew out there, oh, she's got to resign because she's some kind of off-the-wall nut job. She's at least trying to do something. That's all I'm saying. I don't see any problem with that. By the way, here in Mesilla, I can't, matter of fact, I don't even remember anybody out here in Mesilla walking around with a piece of iron on their hip. Because if they do, they're stared at like the typical jerk that they are. And I don't ever see it. Yeah, that's my ending comment there.
No, fair enough. Well, do appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay, take care, Andrew. Go, Michelle. Go, Michelle.
Fair enough. Entitled to your perspective on it here. I just wonder about, one of the larger and outside of our area considerations of is the can of worms that this could also potentially open. That if the Constitution is voidable by public health orders and emergency declarations. I mean, sure, nationally, federally, there are things, and there's even still debate that happens to this day, more scholarly in this case, about like the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus that happened around what was definably a national emergency with the Civil War. But even then, if that was justifiable or not, or just that it didn't end up being challenged that directly at that point in time it's significant. And so even the question of what would be possible in terms of, threat of invasion, those kind of, I don't think anyone would be saying that, no, that's not a national emergency at that point in time. But still, these questions are legitimate. And if it then comes down to that, then at the state level, people can be saying, or governors in this case, saying, well, we declare this an emergency, so therefore we get to take this action about it. Because again, even for people when prior to this, red flag laws have been being debated both here in Texas. Don't expect that to go anywhere given the current political climate, but point is same in many other states across the country. I even know people who are not particularly in favor of reinforcing or rights under the Second Amendment, saying, okay, you want to go after that, that's fine, but leave the Fourth and Fifth Amendment alone in the meantime. So again, doctrine of unintended consequences seems like this is going to be maybe one of the bigger questions coming out of this, of, again, just a whole damn can of worms. And yeah, Edcor, very correct that there are currently lawsuits, at least ones by, I think, Gun Owners of America and National Association for Gun Rights, among others that I'm aware of. So, I mean, there's a lot of conversation on that. But let's get to at least one more call or two we can squeeze in before the end of this hour. We do have Raul in Northeast on line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, what the governor is doing in New Mexico, first of all, it's not a local issue. It's a non-starter anyway. It's a deep blue state, so it's not going to happen. And what she did is in response to a 43% increase between 2009 and 2018 in the rate of guns deaths. And she doesn't want New Mexico to be like what Republican USA is. Here's what she said. When New Mexicans are afraid to be in crowds, to take their kids to school, to leave a baseball a game, when their very right to exist is threatened by the prospect of violence at every turn, something is very wrong. That's what's wrong with America. No one is safe anywhere, anytime, because the Republicans are the puppets of the arms manufacturing industry and the NRA. Now, why aren't your callers talking about Ken Paxton, the unprecedented impeachment of the Attorney General of Texas? 16 articles of impeachment for misusing his office, lying about an affair, doing favors for one of his donors. So that's where the issues are. Now, about 9/11, how tragic. Innocents murdered by jihadists. The deaths of everyone in the 4 hijacked jets. The terror is unimaginable. Some died immediately when the jets hit the towers, not knowing what hit them, but others chose to jump out of windows to keep from being burned to death. How horrible. I saw the second jet hit. I had just gotten up and I turned on the TV and saw the video of the first tower, which had already been hit. And reporters were covering it as if it was an accident that had happened. And then when I saw the second jet hit the tower, we all knew America had been attacked by someone who had gone to war with us asymmetrically, what's called asymmetrical warfare. Now, I'll be flying to New York soon myself, and I've always been a nervous flyer and passenger. I've not liked the feeling of being completely out of control and in the hands of others piloting machines. And there had been passengers, yet in the past it had been hijacked. It wasn't the first time that a jet had been hijacked, but what was different in this case, these people used these passenger airliners as missiles to attack their enemies, symbols and buildings of economic and governmental power. But although people working in the Twin Towers, they were just doing their jobs. And tragically, it's no worse than all the kids who got killed in schools or El Pasoans while they're shopping at Walmart. Innocent victims of crazy people and terrorists. In the case of 9/11, though, it was over religion and oil and money. I saw about the firefighters. They had specials this weekend. Man, talk about heroes. These people knew they were walking into their deaths. That's something else. All the suffering for all the families those killed, and again, all over oil and money and religion. Now, I can kind of, perversely understand what those guys did because they see it as warfare, against their enemies. But why would anybody want to go kill kids in school? And yeah, I guess I can understand the racists and xenophobes that go out and kill people over this idea of, white replacement theory or whatever they believe in. But Al Qaeda, who had stopped the U.S., as you know, had supported them all the time that they were warring against their enemy, the Russians, who had invaded Afghanistan to install their puppet government. And Al Qaeda attacked the United States because the U.S. government had stationed troops in Saudi Arabia during our war against Iran's Saddam Hussein for invading Kuwait. And they were afraid, the Saudis and the United States government and the oil plutocrats and industry, they were afraid that Saddam might attack Saudi Arabia next after he'd gotten Kuwait. Kuwait had been part of Iraq before World War II, but was given to the Kuwaitis by the Allies after the war. I never wanted our boys to go fight to get Kuwait back, independent. I'm sorry for them, but I'd rather not have our boys fighting there, and I'd rather pay a higher gasoline price than having that kind of war going on. But these folks, this Al Qaeda group, they were radical Islamic Muslim faith of what's called Wahhabism, and they're the guys who teach that America is Satan. And so they were outraged when the Saudi monarchy that funds this Wahhabi sect allowed Al Qaeda, according to Al Qaeda, that the Saudi monarchy had allowed the United States to defile their holy land of Mohammed, that's Satan America, right on their holy land. And Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden wanted to draw the United States into a war in the Middle East that would cost the United States a lot of money and changing our lifestyle.
There's certainly an argument to be made that one of the major focus of particularly religiously motivated like these guys were extremists was the entire point is to try and draw the moderates and those that aren't extremists to their side. And by even causing significant impacts to themselves here, like there was no full reasonable expectation that during the 9/11 attacks, as horrific as they were, that it would be causing the downfall of the United States. It certainly caused a siege. It changed world history. let's not mince any words about it because of the response that therefore came after the attack then on Afghanistan, the invasion that happened there, and then the subsequent follow-up, of which there has been a lot of reasonable questions asked in further investigations, including some further specials that I was reviewing this weekend about the whole case. I remember back in middle school reviewing and hearing, I can remember the phrase, the teaspoon warfare, as it was, it wasn't Rumsfeld. It was one of the, I would have to remember which one of the, because it was middle school, one of the administration officials at that point in time talking about the teaspoons of the different biological and chemical warfare agents that the Iraqi regime supposedly had. And certainly those aspects and getting out of that has, and again, the whole, global war on terror, as much as saying we invited it. And it wasn't, just to clarify there, do not believe the U.S., at the very least in a significant way, directly supported al-Qaeda, the Northern Alliance as it was, or at least, the people in the fighting against, particularly the Russians in the invasion of Afghanistan. There's an argument that it morphed into it, and we keep doing this whole giving weapons to people that we like at the time, and then they end up not liking us anymore and they still have the weapons. It hasn't really worked out, I would have to argue, overall, and the reason of us keep continuing to do that, still, I don't know about that. And again, fair enough, and I'll give the appropriateness to talk about this on the anniversary of the attack itself here, though, but also fully argue issues happening statewide in New Mexico. I mean, sure, that concealed carry ban is only immediately in place for Albuquerque, which also is arguably a part of our coverage area, again, on a good clear night. But also we do talk about state level issues and the fact that there are orders also coming out of this affecting the rest of the state entirely, including increasing funding amounts for state police overall. This definitely affects our area. So I'd argue maybe even a little bit more than some of these other things we're talking about happening internationally. So you appreciate the point and the call, and you're giving your perspective on it there. But again, I got to say that the can of worms aspect, particularly when it comes to so with a public health emergency, we can get rid of any right under the Constitution we want to. That possibility and the lack of consideration of what happens next. What if someone else wants to use that in a way you don't like is significant and should not be downplayed at this point in time, even if it's not making the major headlines right now. Well, at this point, we're going to have to end the show there for right now because we're out of time here for this program. I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. We'll do it again tomorrow as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So until then, until next time, we'll have to leave you all there. But remember to, of course, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.